Next, I'm going to take you to the server overview. And let me switch to the server overview section. And now we're basically drilling down. We're getting a little bit more granular here. And now we take a look at each of the individual VPN servers, and we see some of the information we saw in the previous page, but we're going to get a little more granular. And then we're going to take a look at things like our SSL certificate health status. So once again, certificates are always a pain point, and it's a real blind spot for many organizations. Having the ability to see that your certificates are all healthy, and if they're not, you can proactively address those. Also, the number of available connections is critical. We always want to make sure that we have plenty of available connections, and if you see these pushing down towards the lower end of the range, towards zero, then we can jump on there and take some action to remedy that. This also is a number of active connections, and this is helpful from a client distribution standpoint. Many organizations with multiple servers are using, DNS Round Robin or Azure Traffic Manager or some other sort of global server load balancer or GSLB solution. You might even actually be using a load balancer like an F5, a Kemp, a Netscaler, any other platform. And if there are issues with load balancing configuration, we may see servers with no or few connections. We might see servers that have, way more connections than we're anticipating, and we can investigate as to why we don't see an even distribution or a more even distribution of client connections. One of the other things that I really like about this solution in terms of visibility is not only certificates. By the way, certificates are probably number one. I think having a view into your certificate health is probably going to be the biggest lifesaver. The second one will be configuration. So a lot of times when you're deploying multiple servers, it's easy to overlook a configuration. And this has happened to me more than once, where I've had a customer with some strange problems where it presents itself as some users occasionally when they connect will have performance issues, but other times not, and from the same location at the same time doing the same types of things. And so an investigation will reveal misconfigured servers, and you can see that very easily and readily here. So for example, you'll see that I have 5 servers listed in this particular array, and all of them have 4 CPUs and 8 gig of RAM, with the exception of this last one. And again, this is intentional. This is for the demonstration. But bottom line is we have one server that fell through the cracks and somehow only got 2 CPUs and 4 gig of RAM. And so it's running healthy. Everything else looks great. But now this allows me to look at this and go, hey, all of my servers should have 8 gig of RAM. Why is this server different? We can address that. And by the way, this happens time and time again, where a different group provisions servers. They have a document that says I need 4 CPUs, 8 gig of RAM, 80 gig disk, blah, blah, blah. And they're going through and deploying templates, and they misconfigure one or they forget to change it. And when you're doing a bunch of them, that can happen very, very easily. So this is a fantastic tool to monitor configuration and ensure compliance for all of your VPN servers and make sure that they are at full capacity. We also have information about the reporting disk database. The inbox accounting database is a SQL database, and that's where all of this data is stored on each individual server, and then the Power On Platforms agent pushes that to the Azure storage. The reporting disk, however, the size of that disk and the available free space is crucial because it's a SQL database. It's going to grow over time. Now, typically we have, I think by default, the data retention is like 1 year. And for most organizations, that's not a big deal. But the real challenge here is that by default, the reporting disk is on the C drive. Now, if you are if you're provisioning your C drives, generously, 80, 100, 120 gig, maybe even more, perhaps not going to be a problem, but in a very, very busy environment, it certainly could be. But also, if you're thin provisioning, if you are provisioning like with 20 or 30 gig, trying to get away with the minimum, then this could be problematic, and the size of that disk could be a challenge. By the way, I do have tools available. If you're interested, you can reach out to me on this. I do have tools available that allow you to move the reporting database to a separate volume. And so I have customers that have very busy servers that want longer retention times and can't do that on the system partition. And so we'll move that off to another volume. Also, there are performance gains to be had there as well. So ideally, if you have a scenario where that's important, we can certainly address those. So here's our um, disk space utilization, the percentage of utilization, and so we want to make sure that we monitor this very carefully. The size of the database, the free disk space, the size of the database are all crucial to ensuring that the reporting database is healthy, has plenty of free space, and then we don't run into any issues there. Next, I want to talk about port configuration. This is another often overlooked scenario where you can really run into some problems. Again, you can see the number of IKE v2 ports that I have provisioned here is 500, and I've done the same for my SSTP ports, but you will also notice one thing here. Configuration stray, this server only has 128 SSTP ports. So what ends up happening is we put this into production. We're expecting each server to have plenty of ports available, and all of a sudden users when they start connecting to this individual server, start having problems and they can't establish that connection. By the way, the load balancer will see this server is perfectly healthy. The health checks pass, so it's going to route traffic to this server. So this is another way to find misconfigurations. And by the way, this is a really common misconfiguration because when you are making the change from the default settings, the default's like 128 ports. Anytime you go above 128 ports, you must restart the server, not the services, but you must restart the server. And if you change this setting without restarting, or excuse me, if you change the setting and then try to change some other settings too, and then reboot later, one of these will get missed. It's very easy to miss this. So this is a really common configuration change. Misconfiguration, I should say. And then, of course, we have our certificate expiry, and it shows us the dates that all of our certificates expire. So those of you running routing and remote access in your environment, always on VPN with this solution, have no excuses. You'll know exactly when they're going to expire, and you can address them accordingly. Your IKE v2 certificates probably take care of themselves if your servers are domain joined, but your TLS certificates are usually from a public CA, so you do have to mind these, and that gives you that information as well. And then finally, uptime. This is really helpful because you can see how long these servers have been up. One of the things that you can do when you're referencing this is that you can see I have a server here that was up for a much shorter duration. That's unusual. Maybe I want to investigate that. Maybe there was a crash. Maybe somebody rebooted. And as Leo pointed out on the previous call, another scenario in which you might want to pay careful attention here is if you see the uptime past more than about 30 or 40 days. If you see an uptime on a server of maybe 4 months, good bet it's not getting any updates, and it probably needs to be updated and rebooted. So all good stuff. And again, at the bottom, our current usage is more usage statistics on the number of ports and active connections and so forth.